Hey, all right, shalom, shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakal Kodash. I want to say and give double honors to the apostles and the bishop elders of Great Millstone for teaching us this word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to the elect. Lord willing, we're some of those men and women that believe and fear in the name of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. And our brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, coming to you with another quick lesson. It was inspired by this video Apostle Tahar just put up not too long ago. I just got done watching it out here moving around with my dog. If you hear any, like, it sounds like breathing in the background, it's just my dog. She cooling down. But so Salaki for that, and Salaki for that, for the noise in the background, Salaki. But anyway, I wanted to tackle something that one of these Christians said. He said a couple of things when the Apostle Tahar played it for us to watch, and he was doing a response video, I believe, to the Biblical Defenders. That's Elder Karatazaba from Baltimore. And so I looked it up. I love the research things, so I looked up on the chat. You know what I mean? And the chat obviously agreed with me when I asked certain questions and made certain points in regards to that. You got to understand something, that a lot of these, first and foremost, let me get a real quick precept. And the precept that I want to get is in the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, right? Because you got to understand, Christianity is nothing but a strong delusion. It's a powerful, strong, extremely strong delusion. But who was really wrapped up into Christianity like that? The Israelites, the 2/3, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans that refuse to hear the truth on where you might be saved. You're wrapped up in this in these different ideologies, especially Christendom and Islam. But we're focusing on Christianity today because that's where you get a lot of the root problem from. They believe that they hold the keys to the Bible, and they don't. Right, and as we woke up to this truth and we were pulled out of that nonsense, we see that the average Christian, even the so-called learned Christian, doesn't have the truth. Right, so this is the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders. It says this man will come to do the work of Satan with counterfeit power, signs, and miracles, and that man is Esau Edom, right? From the elite to the least, right? It says, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. It says he will use every kind of evil deception to fool those on their way to destruction. And you're going to see this guy in a second speak in this video. He's just another individual on his way to destruction, right? Me and the brother Kahan, we always laugh when we bring that up, when these Christians be like, God told me last night, because they quick to say that the Lord came to them the night before, the night prior, with a vision of what the scriptures mean, and then they start talking out their heart, which really they just talking a bunch of mythology, shit that they heard. And even if they didn't hear it, a demon put that spirit on them to believe the nonsense that they believe. Right? So anyway, it says he will use, in the NLT, 2 Thessalonians 2:10, he will use every kind of deception to fool those on their way to destruction. And that's what you see out here. The vast majority of our people, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians, and Mexicans, those people that go back to us, you're on your way, the vast majority of you are on your way to destruction. Right? Because what? Because they refused to love and accept the truth that would save them, right? And who's bringing out the truth that will save you? Starting with the apostles and the bishop elders of Great Millstone and us brothers on down. And our affiliates, that's what we're doing, right? Even some of these other camps out here, they ain't giving you the 100% truth, but they giving you a majority of it. They telling you that you're the Israelites, but you don't want to receive it. Because see, that's the beginning. Knowing is half the battle. Right, you get the whole truth. You understand. Hey, I need to turn back to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. That's how you gonna be saved, not turn into some fucking Jesus Christ. Because Jesus Christ is just a Edomite. When you say that word Jesus Christ, when you invoke that name, You're not invoking the truth of the Bible. You're not invoking the truth of Yahweh, Bashim Yahweh Shai. You're invoking a lie, right? And that's why you see so many of these people are muddied in it. And the apostle's right. We leaving y'all alone. We don't even mess with y'all. But y'all, we still got to break down the strongholds with this truth, right? Because you're gone. You don't want to receive the love or the truth when you might be saved. And so what? Let's keep on reading in the KJV. And for this verse 10 again, well, you know what? I'm going to keep, verse 10 again in 2 Thessalonians, the KJV, then I'm going to switch over to the NLT. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, the Most High shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, right? And the NLT it says, so verse 11, so the Most High will cause them to be greatly deceived, and they will believe these lies, right? What are these lies? Christianity, Islam, these doctrines of the world, these doctrines of men. Even men that know that they're Israelites, but giving you a skewed version of it. Those Israelite leaders that's not giving you the truth. Right? So I want to play a little bit of this. Let me play this.
And they used to teach us this bullshit in church. This is why I say call the cops on them. Don't have anything to do with them.
Just point at one of the young brothers and they'll flow.
Okay, in order to answer that, I got to piggyback off of something that's been said. Something that's been said around here is something about identity and identity issues, okay? This is something that the Lord shared with me in my prayer time. I was reading scripture and the Lord said, do you know why Satan fell? I was like, because of pride. He was like, yes, but look at the other thing. I was like, what was it? He said he was insecure of his position. I was like, okay, Lord, what do you mean? He said,
so this guy's actually having a conversation with the Lord. And the Lord said, do you know why Satan fell? Because I gave him a position, he didn't like it. He's actually, he's telling you right there, you can pull it back. So I said to the Lord, so he's actually having a conversation with the Lord.
Yeah, and the Lord ain't speak to that nigga. At least not the Lord of the Bible, not Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, right? He didn't speak to that nigga. But see, Christians are not going to contest whether he really spoke or not. They're not going to say, really? No, they're going to sit there in a round circle around the pool table and really believe that this nigga really talked to the Lord. Now, if this nigga was walking up and down the street talking about he talking to the Lord, you put that nigga in an insane asylum. But see, Christianity loves the crazy. I should title the lesson that Christianity loves the crazy. Okay?
What it said. And went back and read it, and it said that Satan said that he wanted to exalt himself to be like the Most High.
That's not in the scriptures, right? When it's talking, well, we were just reading 2 Thessalonians. And 2 Thessalonians, that's not talking about Satan. It said what? It said the man. Let me read that. Let me read up above in the KJV. It says verse 9, right? Verse 9, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 9. This man will come to do the work of Satan with counterfeit power, signs, and miracles, man. Right? That it's a man, not Satan. The Heavenly Father not beefing with Satan in the spirit world, bruh. Satan not cast down to the earth, just locked up, walking around the earth. Man, I wish I could go back to the spirit world with the Heavenly Father and his son. No, nigga. That's not happening at all. Satan is in the spirit world on the left-hand side of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and his son, Yahweh Shai, is on the right-hand side. His only begotten son is on the right-hand side. Everything is cool up there. Ain't nobody tripping. Right? Satan not like, damn, man, I wish I had my position. Satan has his position as an angel on the left-hand side. That's it. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Right? Because even as you read up, it talks about that. 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3 in the NLT. Don't be fooled by what they say. Who is the they? Man. For that day will not come until there is a great rebellion against the Most High and the man of lawlessness, which we're in that time of great rebellion of the Most High. From 2/3 of Israel, even to these heathen that's in power. Until there is a great rebellion against the Most High, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the one who brings destruction, man. Who is that man of lawlessness that's being revealed, that's bringing destruction? The so-called white man, Esau, Edom. Starting with the Bacon elite families. Okay, so this guy, he just speaking out of his heart, right? And a lot of the stuff that these Christians talk and claim that has something to do with the Bible is really mythology. And a lot of this shit goes back to Hellenism. Paul was dealing with Israelites that were Hellenized, that were Romanized, right? That were caught up in the Greek and Roman way of life back then, and the other nations in which they were scattered at, mainly the southern kingdom, right? A lot of these people that were coming back were Israelites from the southern kingdom that were Hellenized during the time of Antiochus or Antiochus Epiphanes IV. That's what was happening, which I'm gonna bring that out in this lesson. All right, let me play this some more.
Now, he wanted to be what it said. And went back and read it, and it said that Satan said that he wanted to exalt himself to be like the Most High. Catch this now. He wanted to be like the Most High. He was beautiful. He was perfect. He had joy.
That's not Satan. That wasn't Satan. That's not in the Bible. None of he's talking about he was beautiful, had jewels. None of that's in the scriptures. Not saying that, Satan just up in the spirit world looking ugly, right? Obviously, everybody's in his celestial bodies up there. So there got to be a level of perfection, but it had nothing to do with that. All that, Satan was beautiful, and he was casted out, and he was a minister of music. That's all cap, nigga. That's all mythology. That's not right. Again, Christianity loves the crazy, man.
He had all of that. He had instruments created in him, so when he sung the praises of God, it wasn't just him singing.
Show you that they don't understand these. Probably didn't I say that? Haven't I said that in it before? Many times? That they don't know the prophetic parts of the scriptures. He's kind of mixing in Ezekiel, what is that, Ezekiel 28? Haven't gone through that in a while. Let me go ahead and double check that. Bear with me for a minute. I believe it's Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Last time I went through that scripture was, 35 years ago, maybe more. Let me see if I can find it. Ezekiel 28, if I'm not mistaken. If I get the wording right, I can get it. It does say the garden. I believe it was thy covering. I was perfect.
Bear with me. I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
In thy way. Talking about the spiritual demons. Take it to, I believe it's, they have a kind heart. Because you're nuts. Well, guess what? Acts like a hoochie coochie girl. Hey, I'm thinking of The Honeymooners, the episode where Alice, acts like a hoochie coochie girl. And she calls Ralph Killer. And she said, I call you Killer because you slayed me. And he said, and I'm calling Bellevue because you're nuts. Well, guess what? We should call Bellevue or whatever, mental ward there is near to you, where every state has a handful of them. So when a Christian, if you, let's say you in Illinois or Chicago, and there's a place for insane people, you should call them. Don't even call the cops.
Yeah, that's exactly why the title of this lesson lines up with what Apostle Tahar is saying. Christians love the crazy. They love the people that are bugged out, man. And because these insane people seem to be holding it all together, they're like a person that's on drugs, but they go to work, right? They're like there's a functional addict, man. You got a lot of functional Christians walking around here, man. They hooked on Christianity, but they're walking around here going to work. They fucking managers, handing you pamphlets at the job. They they going shopping and shit, talking about God bless you and all this other weirdo shit, right? So anyway, let me go to y'all brothers should check this video out. The Apostle did, but let me get some of the information that I grabbed up from ChatGPT. right? Because I asked a series of questions, as I always do, right? So, the first question that I asked was, in Paul's letters, was he speaking to Hellenized Israelites who were scattered? The issue with men wearing long hair stemmed from the adoption of Greek fashion on men, right? Because that's something that Apostle Tahar also tackled in his lesson, where he spoke about, men having long hair, right? That was men having long hair. That was a Greekish fashion, and Paul was speaking against that because it effeminized the men, and we as Israelite men, we're not supposed to be moving effeminate. So a lot of men, Israelite men that were caught up in the Hellenism and Greekish and Roman fashion, they would grow their hair out, right? They would grow their hair long, just like they're doing today. Because now, as it stands today, all Israel became Gentiles, right? In the mind. We all grew up in a Gentile state. So you got Jake in the world coming into this Israelite thing, and they're bringing a lot of those fashions and customs with them. Not only the mythology, but also the fashions of the day, which today women love men with long hair, the dreadlocks, because that's why men get it, right? Or they might be homosexual, because that's where that shit go back to. And it says, yes, in Paul's letters, he was speaking to Hellenized Israelites. That is, Israelites who had adopted aspects of Greek language, culture, and lifestyle due to centuries of diaspora and foreign rule. Especially after the conquest of Alexander the Great, Paul's ministry often focused on the lost sheep of the house of Israel, who had become estranged from the law and customs of their ancestors due to Hellenization and the other Gentile influence. Evidence Paul was speaking to Hellenized Israelites. Romans 9:4-5. You brothers can read that. 1 Corinthians 10, 1 and 2. Moreover, brethren, I would not that ye should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud. Paul is telling Greeks in Corinth that their fathers were with Moses, implying Israelite ancestry. Galatians 4 and 5. He speaks of redeeming them that were under the law, not Gentiles who were never under it, but Israelites who had been. Acts 13 and 26. Paul says, men and brethren, children of the stock of Abraham, when speaking in synagogues across the Greek-speaking world. Many of the Gentiles Paul addressed, and ain't just many, all the Gentiles that Paul addressed, were actually Israelites who had become like the heathen in culture and behavior. To grow your hair long, that's the behavior of the heathen. To wear dreads, right, that shit comes from, that dreadlocks in this modern day has become a it fashion between the so-called Israelite Negro man and Negro woman, right? Why? Because of the Rastafarian influence, right? Which I believe the East Indian culture in which Rastafarianism stems from comes out of the growing of the dreadlocks and the smoking of the ganja. That shit comes. The word ganja itself is an East Indian word, and I believe they call them jatas or something like that. The dreadlocks in East Indian culture, jatas or something like that. So you brothers can look it up, but there's a word for that. That shit comes from the Elamites, right? Anyway, it says this aligns with prophecy. Let me read that again. Many of the Gentiles Paul addressed were actually Israelites who had become like the heathen. Salakia, brothers. Salakia about that, brothers. So it said this aligns with prophecy. Let me read that again. Many of the Gentiles Paul addressed were actually Israelites who had become like the heathen in culture and behavior, especially after being cut off from the covenant in temple worship. This aligns with prophecy of Israel being scattered among the nations and later regathered in Hosea 1 and 2. Right? It says long hair on men and Greek influence. Yes, the issue of long hair on men very likely stemmed from Greek and Roman fashion trends. In 1 Corinthians 11 and 14, Paul says, doth not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? This wasn't a law from the Torah, but a cultural correction. Paul gives based on propriety and headship. In Greek culture, long style hair on men was common among philosophers, aristocrats, especially in homosexual circles. Right, in which a lot of those aristocrats, those philosophers, they got into that shit. And a lot of them were Israelites. And so here it is, Paul is dealing with Hellenized Jews, right? And they're bringing in these customs that they had from the world. And Paul is speaking against that shit. Even the custom of having women speaking in the church or speaking in the gathering of men, the congregation of men, that was something that was brought from the Hellenized world because of women held high position in the Greek temples and in the Roman temples. Okay? So a lot of times these things, even, and it wasn't just, customs and cultures, styles of clothing and dress, but also mythology they were bringing into the truth. And you got that same issue going on today. It says says again, this wasn't the law from the Torah, but a cultural correction, right? Because remember, when we come back into this Israelite thing of ours, this is our culture. When we talk about the customs and the mannerisms of our ancient forefathers, the Israelites, of our forefathers, that's a part of our culture, right? When we're in power, the nations are going to have to adopt our culture. They ain't gonna be able to freely push their culture no more, right? So us in captivity, we adopted the cultures of these other nations, man, thinking that it was natural, and it wasn't, right? And it says, in Greek culture, long styled hair on men was common among philosophers, aristocrats, and especially in homosexual circles. And Paul spoke against all of those things. It was part of a broader effeminacy and gender blurring trends in Hellenistic society. So for a man to have long hair, that's something a woman's supposed to have. And it effeminates a man. It does not masculinate a man, right? Having long hair effeminizes a man. And you can see it in a man, the way he moves his head, he tying his hair in his back, tying his hair up like a woman and shit, styling it and shit like a woman would. That shit blurs the lines, right? It says, by contrast, Israelite men typically wore hair that was neither shaved, bald, nor extravagantly long, right? You had your fro. You had a nice crop of hair, but it wasn't long. Except in certain vows like the Nazarite vow, which your hair would just be long in the sense that, not long in the sense that you laid it back like a chick and you styled it like a woman, but you never cut your hair. You just had a lot of hair. Your hair was just a lot. It was a lot of it. You didn't pull it. You didn't cut it. You seen Jake that didn't cut his hair. If Jake don't cut his hair and let his hair just grow, it's gonna go, wild, unkept looking, but it's gonna be a huge fro, right? So it says, except in certain vows like the Nazarite vow, example given Samson or Samuel. So Paul's rebuke of long hair on men likely addressed Hellenized Israelites trying to copy elite or pagan styles. And you got that going on today. A lot of the stuff that Jake copy is from people that are influencing them, right? Leave it. Are influencing them. It says, addresses Hellenized Israelites trying to copy Israelite or pagan styles. Reinforced gender distinctions and modesty in appearance. Supported his broader teaching in order of headship, 1 Corinthians 11, 3 through 16. It says in summary, yes, Paul often spoke to scattered Hellenized Israelites who had lost their identity and lived amongst the Gentiles. His issues with men having long hair was likely a response to Greek fashion and effeminate trends. Not a Torah violation, but a cultural warning to keep Israelites distinct from pagan practices, right? Then I mentioned 1 Corinthians 12, where he was also being Gentiles. It made us Gentiles in the mind, That's what made us Gentiles. It says connection to Hellenization. After the Greek conquest under Alexander the Great, Israelite territories were flooded with Greek language, customs, names, gymnasiums, idol worship, and laws. Many Israelites changed their names, examples given Jason and Menelaus instead of Judah and Mattathias. They stopped circumcision, they ate unclean foods, worshiped false gods. 1 Maccabees 1 and 11 to 15. And when you bring up the book of Maccabees to a Christian, they don't even know what that book is. Oh no, that ain't in the Bible. I ain't reading that. That's not canonical. But it was in the Bible, but until it was taken out. The Apocrypha was part of the Bible for over 200 plus years. And then it was taken out until it was taken out. And it probably even longer than that. Right? That's why when you go to the 1611 King James Bible, you're going to see the Apocrypha in there. Yeah, it ain't going to be taken out. But a lot of us grew up in this world calling ourselves Christians that were in that bullshit. The Christian that you worship, you only had what they call the Old Testament and the New Testament. Okay? So it said in summary, yes, 1 Corinthians 12 and 2 is subtle but strong verse showing that Paul's audience in Corinth were Israelites who had been living as Gentiles under Greek and Roman influence. Paul was calling them back to their identity in the Messiah, just as the prophets were told. Then I write, did Paul have issues with Hellenized Israelites bringing in mythology into the ministry? Yes, Paul absolutely had issues with Hellenized Israelites and others trying to bring Greek mythology, philosophies, and pagan customs into the faith. He frequently rebuked false teachings, fables, and profane mixtures that crept into the assembly. Much of its influence by Greek culture which surrounded the Israelites and diaspora. So when you got this guy in here talking about Satan was the most beautiful, he had an instrument made in his body, and when he spoke, it just sounded like a ominous song that he claims is the most beautiful. All of that shit is mythology, right? You know, Satan falling from the sky and into the earth, dropping his sandal and shit as Lucifer. That's mythology, right? The whole war inside that spiritual world in the heavens is a lie, right? The angels don't fight against the Most High. They scared of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, bro. Why would they fight against them? And they perfect. They're in their order. Why would they fight against Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai? They wouldn't. Okay? They wouldn't. You see? Salakia, brothers. So it says right here, again, I'm sorry, brothers, bear with me. Just bear with me, brothers. So yeah, it says right here, yes, Paul absolutely had issues with Hellenized Israelites and others trying to bring mythology and philosophies and pagan customs into the faith. He frequently rebuked false teachings, fables, and profane mixtures that crept into the assembly. Much of its influence by Greek culture, which surrounded the Israelites in diaspora. Here are several scriptures that shows Paul's concern. 1 Timothy 1, 3 through 4, that thou mightest charge some that they teach no other doctrine, neither give heed to fables, endless genealogies which minister questions. Fables, Greek mythos, literally myths, and legends or legendary tales. Paul was warning against Greek mythological ideas being treated as spiritual truth. And that's what you got going on today. A great deal of what Christians, the crazies, believe in is mythology, right? It's mythology or mythological ideas being treated as spiritual truth, and it's not. A lot of the stuff that these people were talking about, it's just somebody pulled it out their ass. And they even a whole idea of burning in hell or a place of hell you go to because you didn't live the right life, right? So you just burn it eternally. That's a myth. That's not true. The whole idea that Satan is fighting and wrestling against the Most High is not true. That's mythology. Okay? There is a person on this earth. There are people on this earth. There's a people on this earth that are following after the ways of Satan. right? Those adversary ways that are fighting against the truth, that are fighting against Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Even our own people, they're into that shit. Okay? And it says, this was common in cities like Ephesus, where Diana/Artemis worship was strong and mystery religions flourished. And that's why you got a letter to those in Ephesus. And 2 Timothy 4:3-4, for the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables. Again, Paul warns that people will prefer mythology and entertaining stories over the truth of the gospel. Right? And so, Salak, I gotta refresh that. I don't know what happened. So going back to where I was reading at, it says again, Paul warns that people would prefer mythology and entertaining stories over truth of the gospel. These fables could include Greek myth, Gnostic ideas, or blended doctrines combining scriptures with pagan philosophies. Titus 1:13-14, wherefore rebuke them sharply that they may be sound in the faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth. Paul was dealing with a mix of problems, not only Greek influence, but also man-made traditions and legends that corrupted the law and the gospel. And you saw a bit of that during the time of Yahushua, where you had the Pharisees doing shit, creating doctrines of men. Like a great simple one was the washing of your hands before you eat. Right? That was a tradition of men. It ain't say that in the scriptures. Right? And Yahushua said it's not what goes into a man that defiles him, but what comes out of him. And it's not talking about the poop that comes out of you after you got done eating food, but it's talking about the things in your mind that you thinking and then you start spewing out of your mouth. Those things are what defile a man. The things in your heart, which is your mind. But they didn't understand that. And now today, Christians or the crazies, they use that as to say you can just eat anything you want. And that's not the case. So it says Paul was dealing with a mix of problems, not only Greek influence, but also man-made traditions and legends that corrupted the law and the gospel. Some Jewish fables were likely mystical or Kabbalistic in teachings influenced by Hellenistic Judaism. Exactly. And that's where you get the whole Kabbalah from, or the Jewish mysticism. Jewish mysticism. Leave it. Salaki, brothers. Jewish mysticism, right? In Colossians 2:8, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophies and vain deceit, after the traditions of men, after the rudiment of the world, and not after Hamashiach. Philosophy here refers to Greek philosophical systems like Stoicism, Platonicism, and Sophicism. Paul saw how these systems competed with or tried to reinterpret the teachings of the Messiah, right? This warning was especially important in Colossus, a city known for syncretism, blending religions and philosophies. Why was this such a problem? After centuries of Greek dominance, since Alexander the Great, 330 BC, many Israelites were raised in Hellenistic culture. Salakia. So it says, many Israelites were raised in Hellenistic culture. They were often educated in Greek schools, exposed to myths of Zeus, Hermes, Dionysus, and philosophies like the Epicurean and Platonism. Some Israelites tried to blend those ideas into the teachings of Yahushua, corrupting the purity of the faith. Paul's goal. Paul was focused on calling scattered Israelites back to the truth, teaching them to reject idolatry and myths. 1 Corinthians 10:20. Hold fast to the teachings of the prophets and Messiah. Stay away from both Greek mythology and man-made religious traditions, whether Greco-Roman or pharisaical. And that's what we're going through the same thing today. And in today's thing, because of the transatlantic slave trade, because of the colonization of the Americas, it truly decimated all of us and made all of our people at one point that are not in that are in this truth. It made all of us Gentiles, right? And now we're just like in Paul's stead, we're fighting against a lot of these traditions, and we're speaking against them, and we're speaking out of them, and that's making us an enemy to the world religions, because Christianity is a powerful religion today. Not as powerful as it once was, but it's yet still as powerful. Islam is a powerful religion, right? We got Jake that's heavily into that shit, and they ain't leaving it. So when we bringing this truth up, it's like something brand new. It's like a new thing, but in reality, this is the truth. It's been here since the beginning of time. But now we're wading through these lies. And so you see people like this guy sitting at this pool table lying, talking about how the Lord came to him the night before and asked him a question about Satan and his whole deal, which was a lie. That nigga crazy. If somebody told you, you know what, a spirit came to me, somebody came to you, sat down next to you on the table and told you, hey man, you know what, a spirit came to me and told me this and told me that, and I had a conversation with it. You gonna look at this nigga like he crazy. You need to be in an insane asylum. You need to be on some psychotropics or something, bro. What, you got, schizophrenia? Right? It's no different. But the crazy, as I always say, is the insane are running the asylum. Right? The insane are these heathen nations and 2/3 of Jakes. They are the insane ones. The asylum is the earth. And these motherfuckers is running it. Right? Whereas the ones that's supposed to really be running it, like the orderlies, the doctors, you know, the people that got that's not crazy, right? They're the ones that's locked up. You see? So it says right here, in summary, yes, Paul had major issues with Hellenized Israelites and others who brought Greek mythology and philosophies and pagan customs into the assembly. He addressed this directly and repeatedly in his letters, urging believers to reject fables, false doctrines, and anything not rooted in the truth of Scripture. You see? Leave it. Right? And so, again, that's what we dealing with. Christians love the crazy, man. Christians love the crazy. And you see that. Right? These people, they come to you talking all soft. Hey, brother, you know this. Hey, you know, all you got to do is give your life to Christ and you'll be good. That's what they say. But they don't know the scriptures. The scriptures tell you that you can't give your life to Yahweh Shai. That the Most High, through his son, has to choose you, man. Right? He said, you have not chosen me, I have chosen you. But Christians will tell you all day, every day that, man, you know, I gave my life to Christ in 96. I used to be a fucking whore in the street. I smoked crack and I was shooting up heroin in the veins. And then, you know what? One day, God came to me and revealed to me. I got cleaned up. A church helped me clean up. Right? Sent me to brother Timothy, and brother Timothy took me to first Black Abernathy Baptist Church of the Saints in Glory of God. And next thing you know, from 96 on, I've been clean and sober. All because of the love of Jesus. Them niggas is crazy. You exchange one crack for another. Right? So, at the end of the day, Christians love the crazy. So I hope you were edified with that. I would say shalom and on to the next, man.